Was it possible for a girl who had been left for dead to ever feel safe again? That question hung in the cold air the moment Lona opened her eyes on the 7th day of winter. She had survived the storm, survived the beatings, survived the men who wanted her gone. But she did not know if she could survive hope. Snow covered the McAllister ranch like a grave sheet. The fences had fallen. The barn leaned to the side as if tired of holding itself up. The land around her looked as broken as the bones inside her ribs. Lona, barely 17, stood in the doorway of the empty cabin with her thin shawl wrapped tight around her shoulders. Her breath formed pale clouds that floated like ghosts in front of her face. She had no family now, no one left to call her name. The men who should have protected her had tried to kill her instead. They left her in the mule barn to bleed and die, and for a while she thought she would. Hunger kept her alive. Pain kept her moving. By spring, she could stand long enough to draw water, cut wood, and patch the holes that let the winter wind creep in at night. She never cried. Crying made her colder. The land did not like weakness, and Lona learned quickly that she could not afford to look weak. She trapped rabbits with broken wire. She melted snow in a rusted tin. She slept in the root cellar because the cabin roof leaked too much for comfort. Her mother's buffalo hide was the only warmth she trusted in the long, silent nights. By the time summer came, Lona's pale eyes carried a sharpness the world had carved into her. She had stopped thinking about survival and started thinking about revenge. She had found her mother's colt hidden deep in the chimney, wrapped in cloth to keep it from rusting. She cleaned it with ash and oil. It felt heavy in her hands, but right. The first man she killed came looking for stolen cattle. Lona met him at the fence with steady hands and a shot that did not miss. The second man had a mouth full of lies about helping her fix the ranch. She struck him with a brick before his lies could become hands reaching for her. The third man dug his own grave without knowing it. She only helped him into it. Lona had learned how to survive alone. She believed she always would, until the day she saw the cowboy riding through the valley like a shadow ready to fall. He was thin, leaning forward in the saddle as though one strong wind might blow him straight off his horse. His coat was faded blue, torn at the sleeve. One arm hung limp. His face was hollow, worn down by hunger or something worse. When his horse reached the broken gate, it stopped and lowered its head. The man did not move. Lona watched him from the doorway, her mother's colt hidden behind her leg. She waited an hour before stepping into the yard, boots silent in the dry grass. She reached him only after the sun set. She pressed the barrel of the pistol to his cold cheek. He opened his eyes slowly, as if waking from a long sleep. "You here to finish it?" she asked. "No, ma'am," he whispered. "Just dying, but thank you kindly for asking." He sounded honest, almost gentle, though his voice was cracked from thirst. Something in his eyes told her he was not like the men she had faced before. He did not reach for a weapon. He did not try to stand. He only waited. Lona lowered the pistol. He did not move. It took all her strength to pull him from the saddle and drag him into the barn. She fixed his shoulder with a broom handle and a bottle of old whiskey she found under the sink. He screamed once, and then bit his lip so hard blood ran down his chin. Lona watched the pain hit him like a storm. She did not offer comfort. She only made sure he stayed alive. His name was Jude. He told her that the second day he could speak without shaking. She said nothing in return. She did not offer her own name, and he did not ask a second time. Jude stayed because he had no choice. Infection clawed at his side, and the fever came hard. Lona cooled his skin with melted snow and fed him thin rabbit stew when he was strong enough to swallow. She talked little, but her hands were steady when she wrapped his wounds. He saw the scars on her arms but did not ask about them. She saw the sadness in his eyes but did not ask about that either. On the 24th day, Jude stood for the first time. "You'll need to work if you're staying," Lona said. "I'm not staying," Jude replied. She handed him the axe. He took it without a word. Together they split wood until their hands bled. They did not speak, but their silence felt different than the silence Lona had lived in for years. It was not empty. It was shared. As the weeks passed, the hills bloomed with wildflowers, bright and stubborn. Coyotes came back to the ridges. The creek sang louder as the snow melted. The land around them started to look alive again. For the first time in a long time, so did Lona. Trouble came back the same summer, as trouble always does. Lona saw their tracks first, then the smoke at the tree line. The men who left her for dead had returned. This time they weren't alone. Lona loaded her mother's Colt. Jude sharpened the axe. They did not speak, but they stood side by side when night fell. Because for the first time in her life, Lona was not alone in the fight. The fire at the tree line burned low, a cruel reminder that the past had finally found its way back to the ranch. Lona stood in the doorway, with her rifle in hand. Jude stood beside her, rolling his shoulders as if trying to ignore the ache that never left his bones. The night pressed heavy around them, thick with a cold whisper of danger. 3 men came out of the dark. The McAllister boys were older now, meaner around the eyes, and carrying anger like it was part of their skin. The 4th man, the one with the scar she had given him across the jaw long ago, watched her with a twisted grin. They walked toward the fence slow, almost lazy. Men who believed nothing could stop them. "You're a hard one to kill, girl," the scarred man said. Lona held the rifle tight. "You should have tried harder the first time." The men laughed as if she was a joke. Jude did not laugh. Jude stepped in front of her, axe in hand, eyes steady on the danger coming their way. "This land isn't yours anymore," Jude said. The scarred man spat. "Wasn't yours to take." Lona stepped out from behind Jude and leveled the rifle at the scarred man's chest. The other 2 reached for their guns. She fired first. The shot tore through the kneecap of the man on the left, dropping him to the ground with a scream. The second man barely lifted his pistol before Jude moved. His axe cut through collarbone with a clean, sickening crack. The man fell before he could cry out. The scarred man looked from the bodies to Lona. Fear finally reached his eyes. He turned to run. Lona did not go after him. Nor did Jude. Some ghosts were meant to wander. After the bodies were dragged past the fence, the night felt quieter than before. Lona sat on the porch, rifle across her knees. Jude washed the blood from his hands at the pump. Neither spoke. The world around them seemed to breathe again, slow and steady. By late summer, they no longer felt like 2 strangers sharing the same broken land. Jude rebuilt the porch, 1 plank at a time. Lona trapped foxes, cooked what they caught, and stitched the hides into blankets for winter. They spoke rarely, but when they did, the words felt real. Jude never asked about her past. Lona never asked about his scars. They lived in a strange peace, the kind 2 wounded people find when they learn how to breathe in the presence of someone who understands pain. But peace never stayed long in the West. The rider came at dusk. A tall man in a tan coat, clean boots, polished revolvers, and a badge inside his jacket. Not law, not outlaw, something in between. His eyes carried the pride of someone paid to break people. He stopped at the porch and studied them like property. "This land was sold in foreclosure," he said. "I'm here to measure boundaries and prepare for your departure." Jude stepped forward. "This place is ours." "Not by paper," the man tapped his coat. "And paper is what matters." Lona stepped up beside Jude. Her rifle rested against her leg, steady and sure. "Come back tomorrow," she said. The man lifted his brow. "Why tomorrow?" "So I can dig the hole you'll go in if you don't." The man did not smile. He rode away slow, but he rode away. Jude turned to her with a faint hint of a grin. Might have exaggerated about the deed. "Doesn't matter," Lona said, because she knew this land did not belong to the men who tried to take it. The land had chosen her long before they ever stepped foot here. It felt like the first time the world had chosen anything for her. Months passed. The ranch began to feel almost whole. Jude often woke early to shape something from the old barnwood. Lona hunted on the ridges and mapped out every inch of the land she had bled for. They slept near each other but never close. Trust took time. Neither rushed it. One night, a letter arrived nailed to their door. No name, no return mark. Just 5 words written in charcoal. You missed one. In Sweetwater. Lona's heart did not speed up, but it tightened. Jude watched her read the words. Friend of yours? He asked. No. You know who they mean. She nodded. One of the men who tore her world apart was still alive. Jude saddled his horse. She watched him tighten the straps. You don't have to come, she said. He didn't answer. At dawn, he rode beside her. Sweetwater was a rough, dusty mining town. Men lived and died there without leaving anything behind but a bar tab. It took only a day for Lona to find him. Elis McAllister, the last of the boys who broke her bones and burned her mother's Bible. Now he owned a saloon and carried himself like a man who never paid for any of the sins he'd caused. She watched him for 3 nights, watched how he drank, how he hit the girl who brought him whiskey, how he bragged about things a real man would never brag about. On the 4th night, she walked in. The saloon went quiet the moment she stepped inside. Lona sat across from Elis and placed her mother's colt on the table. His smile faded. He looked into her pale eyes and knew exactly who she was. You left me to die, she said. He reached for his belt. She shot his hand before he touched it. Blood splashed across the cards. Men jumped back. I'm not dead, she said. And she stood. Jude was waiting outside with the horses. They rode away before the law came, before Elis decided if he would live with one hand or bleed out trying. The ride back was silent. But not empty. It was the kind of silence that sat between 2 people who had survived something together. Back home, the world felt different. Softer, warmer. Lona found herself waking up before the sun, watching Jude as he worked in the field. She didn't know what the feeling was. It wasn't love. Not yet. But it was something close. Something she wanted to understand. Something she feared. And something that would soon be tested in a way neither of them were ready for. The first sign of trouble came with the buzzards. They circled low over the ravine, their dark wings cutting slow shapes against the pale morning sky. Lona followed their path and found the broken wagon at the edge of the trail. 2 dead mules lay tangled in their reins. Blood soaked the dirt, but the wind carried no sounds except the faint rasp of something crawling. She found the boy half a mile farther. A thin child, maybe 12, sunburnt and shaking. One leg twisted wrong, mouth cracked, eyes wide with fear. Lona knelt beside him. The boy tried to pull away. I'm not here to hurt you, she said softly. He did not believe her at first. His whole body trembled like a rabbit waiting for the final blow. What's your name? She asked. He swallowed hard. Emmett. Who did this? Quote. He stared at the dirt. Men in gray coats took Pa's gold tooth, shot Ma in the throat. Lona lifted him gently. He screamed once, then bit down on her coat to keep himself from screaming again. When she reached the cabin, Jude stepped out onto the porch, brow furrowed. You picking up strays now? He asked. He didn't ask for it, Lona said. Jude sighed, but he held the door open. They cleaned Emmett's wounds and set his leg. For 3 days the boy said nothing, only watched Lona with wide eyes. Jude kept his distance, watching from the porch, unsure if they should trust another soul on land already soaked with danger. But one night, as the wind howled through the broken fence, Emmett whispered, "Thank you." It was small, quiet, but it was enough. Life shifted around them in small, steady ways. Emmett followed Jude around the yard, learning knots and how to whittle without cutting skin. He followed Lona too, carrying wood, sharpening blades, fixing whatever he could with hands still shaky from fear. Slowly, the boy became part of the place. Part of them. But peace in the West never lasted long. The woman appeared one evening as the sun set red over the ridge. She rode a black stallion, not dusty, not tired, her boots polished, her eyes sharp. She stopped at the porch and nodded once. "Looking for a girl," she said. "One who shot Elis McAllister in the hand and walked out of Sweetwater like the dead owed her something." Jude leaned on the doorway. "You the law?" "I'm worse." Lona stepped outside. "You found me." The woman studied her carefully. "Elis is dead now, shot himself. Couldn't hold a bottle with that busted hand." Lona didn't react. "I didn't burn his saloon." "I know, but someone did." "Then why come here?" The woman dismounted. "Because there's a bounty on your head, state-backed, $200. Enough to make desperate men brave." Lona didn't blink. "They'll come." "Soon," the woman said, "and when they do, you'll need help." Quote. Lona frowned. "What's your stake?" "I'm building something. A place for women like us, outsiders, fighters, survivors. We take care of our own." "I'm not joining anything," Lona said. "Didn't ask you to." The woman swung back onto her horse. "Just came to warn you." Her name was May, and her warning was the last calm moment before the storm. Winter arrived with a sharp, cruel edge. Coyotes cried from the hills. Snow gathered in hard drifts. Emmett learned to skin traps. Jude patched the roof until his fingers bled. Lona stood watch every night, staring into the dark where shadows moved too quietly. Then, one morning, Emmett's panicked voice broke the silence. "There's men out there," he whispered. 4, maybe more, watching from the trees. Jude locked the door. Lona grabbed the rifle. The three of them sat at the table without speaking. The quiet pressed heavy, like a hand on their throats. At dawn, a voice echoed across the yard. "Lona, McAllister, we've come to settle things proper." Lona stepped onto the porch. 5 men stood at the fence, horses behind them, rifles across their backs. Their leader was young, clean-faced, wearing a dust coat marked with a gray sash. "You killed men better than you," he said. "I killed men who deserved it." He held up a paper. "This land belongs to the Torrance Trust now. You can walk away, or we can take it from your cold hands." Jude stepped beside her. "That trust ever bleed before?" The man smirked. "Only when it needs to." They left without warning. Men like that didn't threaten twice. That night, the Hollow prepared. Lona buried traps in the snow, glass inside biscuit tins. Jude lined the house with kerosene tins and powder flasks. Emmett sat in the attic with the little. 22, hands trembling but eyes steady. At sunrise, hell came. Gunfire shattered the windows. A rider with a torch charged the porch. Lona shot him before he reached the steps. Jude dropped another from the barn loft. Emmett hit one from above, then cried out when the recoil jammed the gun. The attackers moved fast. Smoke rose from the dry grass. The barn caught fire at the roof. Lona ran toward the flames with a kerosene bucket, shouting for Jude. He appeared through the smoke, limping, face blackened with ash. And then the last man came from behind. Emmett tried to warn them, but his voice cracked in fear. The man burst through the kitchen door, pistol raised at Jude. Lona didn't think. She threw the skinning knife. It caught the man in the throat. He stumbled back. Jude rushed forward, driving him into the wall and knocking him cold. Then silence. Thick. Heavy. Real. They were alive. That night, they ate in tired silence. Emmett stared at the pin Jude gave him, a small cavalry crest worn with age. Jude placed it in the boy's hand gently. "You held your ground," Jude said. "That's what matters." Lona looked at the two of them and felt something strange. Not fear, not pain, something she had not allowed herself in years. Belonging. Months passed before May returned. This time she brought 2 fierce women and a mule cart full of guns and dynamite. She spoke of towns burned by Torrance men, sheriffs gone missing, a network of killers funded by greed. "They won't stop," May said. "Not until someone ends it." Lona stepped forward. "Then we end it." Jude looked at her, reading the truth in her steady eyes. 3 days later they rode out. What happened at the Torrance outpost became whispered legend. The fire burned for days, the gun smoke stained the morning air, and when it was over, the men who hunted Lona were nothing but ash in the dirt. When she returned home, Emmett ran to her. Jude watched her like a man who finally saw his world come whole. May offered her place, her alliance. Lona shook her head. "I've buried enough. It's time something grows here." Jude stepped closer. "I can stay," he said quietly. "You already did." For the first time in years, Lona smiled. Not out of victory, not out of relief, out of hope. Years later, riders passing through the valley would whisper about the hollow where storms died, where a girl rose from blood and built something gentle from the ruins of her world. They called it Quiet Hollow, a place named for the peace she finally earned, a place where Lona, Jude, and Emmett made a life that no one could take again.